All right, let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining in. This is the XAFer community stand-up. We supposed to do it second Thursday of every month. Last month was crazy, so we are getting back on track now, and we have a lot of great meetups coming on. So we're gonna talk today about starting with the software API, but we'll definitely do a few more on software API, especially testing everything new that will be being released. As we know, the software API will be free for CRUD's operation, but it will be for everyone who has the universal license. They will include file data, reports, validation. So a lot of great things are coming. I remember let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm gonna let Hoche and Dave, as always, introduce themselves. I always like to take those 2 minutes for everyone who watch the video later to know who we are and why we are passionate about SAF, and just giving them the chance to always reach out to us. I think that there is always a huge power in community. So Hoche, introduce yourself, then Dave, and then we get on track.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Ochi Ojeda. I'm an Express MVP. Usually I like to do .NET experiments. So in general in the office, we try to push .NET to the limits, and that includes XPO, XAF, and anything .NET related. So, well, that's everything for me. So Dave, your turn.
That's good, thank you. Yep, Dave from LlamaChant Technology. We've been using the framework since it was released in 2007, 2008. We provide consulting and training and custom development, all that fun stuff. So if you're stuck on something, reach out to us and we'll give you a hand.
Nice. So I'm always amazed when I hear like SAF CTP 2006 release 2007. It's like we're in 2022 and we're going strong. And this SAF API is a dream that a lot of SAFers has had, because we have done a lot of crazy integrations to be able to use SAF data outside of SAF, like in Xamarin, in other projects. So even reports, I remember having to put in a web API, do all reports on Net Framework, and then send the string back to Xamarin. So this, to be able to get this in a nice format, this is beautiful with Swagger for documentation. This is just a dream come true. So the interesting thing is that we have done things with web API. We have done things with OData. We have done things with WCF, GraphQL. So you name it. We have tried to basically test everything, so we know what we like. I used to like a lot the OData v3 because it was simple, fast. You created your solution through the template, and it's a change that they are discontinuing that and only allowing OData. Before there was a lot of things there that couldn't not do it exactly, so it became a little more cumbersome. But I don't think that it will get easier than what we're getting now. So we're getting a lot of great things out of the box. So documentation, I think that they are doing a great job on the documentation. You can see here when they describe, and they are using actually everything we need, and they are actually improving every release. If you see right now, they are not using anymore the SAF application. They are using the IO Space Factory, I believe, something like that, a security provider. So they are taking away everything that could slow down the system for performance reasons. So right here, we have great documentation about the web API. You can check the authentication part. You can see the middle type for Windows. I remember this being a huge thing because Windows have in the app config the connection string, and then we have to encrypt that and do a lot of things. And not even that, there were a lot of clients that they did not want to have that in there. They want to have that middle tier. So let's do one, and let's start with that. I think that is good to get, or I think that I have it, or feed web and go from there. So let's select and let's put web API SAF. So let's, of course, not core. Unless we are doing a legacy app, we're not moving back to the framework. So let's do Blazor and web API to have it in a separate project. Before, they used to have both merged as one. XPO as always, authentication, and as always, the minimum I always like to select conditional period and validation. Okay, and let's click finish. Give it a second. I'm glad to see Jacek, Jean Paul, and Brian here. They are always here with us, so thank you for the support. Let's give it a second. Okay, so as you see, I still don't even, I'm not even using the latest version. As you see, we are still creating 3 projects, but what I want to show is the web API, the startup. And you can check the documentation with all these steps are explained. But basically, same thing that we're always used to. We can check all the login info, what is the user type, permission, so on. And of course, we're going to have right here the service web API with the options. That is the web API options that have several things for us to do. The simple one to start with is just to uncomment that. And you will see that right here, we can put our business object or anything that we want to expose in our API. So let's select the application user. That way we don't have to create a new one, but we will definitely do one. So right here, you're telling them that we want to expose in the SAF web API the application user that we have in our SAF module that we know is inheriting from permission policy user and so on. So let's run the Blazor server at least once. So it creates the databases, create the user and so on. And then let's run the web API to see it in action. And if you see, I haven't done anything. I just uncomment one line, haven't done nothing at all. And we will have already a SAF application with all the groups operation, all the views, all the database, and then we have a web API as a middle layer going to that database and doing all sorts of operations. Give it a second. First time is always take a little bit longer. Let's do admin. Come on. And in the meantime, you can see here the authentication control that they are providing for us. You can always use your own and change. You can see the authenticate method. You can see whether they taking the password and the username and password. You can see how they return unauthorized if doesn't find the user, and you see how create the claims, how you create the tokens. You can see everything there in between, and you can also check in the app settings the GWT section and the user signing key ID that basically you should have that in a secret storage, but you have here everything you need. So let's wait for it, and we have the application running. You see that we already have our 2 users as always, and let's now run the web API. This is a dream come true if you are doing also like summarizing and things like that, because you right away get the information that you need. And with OData that you can do, and we will talk about the queries on OData, you can do filter with this name, you can do expand, you can do select, you can do a lot of things. Okay, we have right here, if you see, we have done anything, and we already have our Swagger with the SAF API specification. You can see here that we have the application user, and we have all these get posts and all these get counts, just a specific user, all the users. So a lot of endpoints already ready for us. So the first thing that we're going to do is authenticate. So let's try it out, and let's do admin, and we already were seeing the authentication controller, and let's just pass the blank password as we do normally. So when we execute that, you see here that we have our token here that it was created in this method. And if you see here, all the claims, who is the user, what is the claims, when it expires. So all those things are right there. available for us. So we're going to copy that token. We're going to authorize, so we're going to put the token here. And that's it. Now we can close and we can do anything. We can go to the application user and just, as always, try it out. I'm doing the post, so, and I have to, I'm trying to do the get execute. And right here, you can see that we have our application user and we have what is our user is active, change on password on first logon. We have the OID, same thing for the other user, the admin. So right there, without doing anything else, we already have an API running with authentication, with GWT token. This is amazing. So how long does it took us before to get to this point, Josh?
I think like 2 minutes. And you know, like I remember the old days, like 5 years ago, where we did all type of magic to do something like this and to use XPO in Xamarin and XAF in Xamarin. So now to see that it just, I mean, if you give developers enough time, they will end up doing your work. Because we did, remember that we did all type of plumbing classes, middle layers to do something like this. And it was always hacky.
Yeah.
And this is like super standard. This is super standard. It's like right click, add new project or whatever, or it comes with the wizard. So basically there is no effort involved. And now to think about all the things that we did before, which seems like a waste, but in the end you learn out of those experiences, right? So, and then you know what you want to include in the framework and stuff like that. So now for me, this looks like magic. I was all day using it and doing tests because this, Javier, is not only a REST API, it's a combination of a few things. It's a REST API, and it also uses the OData syntaxes to expand, to filter, and to other stuff. So it's not, remember that you said at the beginning that we use WCF, REST API, OData, and this is all of that at the same, in one project in like a few lines. So it basically is the culmination of everything that we did before.
The other thing, Jose, that I wanted to mention here is that I tried out a little bit before, but you know, as always, I should have tried out with a little more time to fix anything. And of course, because it's so old, we need to update it to the latest .NET and to the latest version. But we have a OData generator that used to read all this metadata and create the classes for the Poco classes for Xamarin, for Maui, for anything we need. So basically, right now, we basically don't need it because we can use our net standard project in Maui and everything else, but it was definitely something that it couldn't do in the past. In the past, we could not mix .NET Framework and Mono, and trying to use any type of base implementation in Mono, that was giving us an error. So we actually created a OData generator, that's how we call it, that read all this metadata and create all the classes, everything we need, so we can right away be working on Xamarin. So it's amazing how we have all of this out of the box, and that we will have reports, validation, and a lot of other great things here. So just wanted to give that quick get started with the software to API, and then I'm going to pass to Jose that I want to present a few more things.
Also, Javier, it's like, I guess we will repeat this a lot today. This looks like super simple, like it's something that they just include like 3 pages or something, but we know all the plumbing underneath. So it's a huge effort that they have done. So I see it as a huge gift, especially because these things, they don't increase the price of the framework. It's just, you pay the same membership and you can keep getting new stuff. So I see it like, I wish this would have been available like a few years ago. But anyway, so I have a few demos today. I will be building up on the same demo. So first, Javier, as you said, talking about references and stuff like that. Today, I mean, I had like several examples before, several tests, and the documentation is still, I guess, in a work in progress, or maybe the technology is in work in progress because some stuff don't match exactly. You have to double check or then Google some stuff. But beside that, everything end up being like usable most of the time. So here I will show a few things that they don't relate, but in the end we will use in the API. First is this solution. One of these days I was doing a sample project for myself to test something, and I wanted to use, remember that we did the geolocation provider for XPO for Microsoft SQL Server. So I was reading about that, and those types are not available in Net Core, Net 3, Net 5, and Net 6 at the moment. So you cannot use them in XPO. So, well, I wanted to use SQL Server because nowadays is what I'm using all the time. But you know, Javier, that I usually used to come from a Postgres background. So I said, okay, I will do what I did before. I will use Postgres. And I have done this provider several times. I never save it. I always throw it away. But this time I might even publish it because I like how it was. So we have here, this is the XPO provider. I didn't put a limitation on what I wanted to do. So right now it's called PostGIS. I think I would rename it for Ultra or something like that, Post Ultra or something, because I don't want to just limit myself to do geolocation queries and geolocation support. So I want to include JSON support and some other stuff that, well, Postgres is a really neat database, and it's open source and it's the same as Oracle almost without the tag price. So, okay, basically I just inherit from their provider. I added a few lines basically, which is register the net topology suite. In this case, if you see the references, this is the most important one. And basically what this do is it modifies the ADO.NET provider to include other types. And that is kind of not a standard. If you see how SQL Server do it for geometry types, they do it in one way, Postgres do it in a different way. So that's why I guess it's hard to encapsulate that functionality in general, because each provider do it in a different way. So basically this nugget here basically extends the ADO.NET layer, so you can use another type of columns, which are not the standard columns. And then basically here I just tell them to register those types. Then these two methods are the one to resolve the connection string. And I just added one case in here, which is if what the ADO.NET provider returns is a point type, I just return the value. In some cases, they cast it as a string, they return empty quotes or stuff like that. But I just added this case to be able to handle a new type of column, let's say it's like that. And then these two are boilerplate code to register the provider. And then this method is in Postgres. After you create a database, you need to execute that query. So it will include the geolocation functions and the geolocation columns. So for example, if I create a database here, demo, and if I go to schemas, then if I go to, let's see what it is, domain functions. If you see, there are no functions in here. But if I copy this query, and go back to, where was it here? Oh, well, the query is here. If I execute this, no, I need to create a query for this. That query was for the other schema. So let's see, create. What is here? Tools. Wait. Okay, so I'm using SAP demo. And for some reason, these menus are disappearing now. Okay. So I execute the query. And when I execute the query, it will tell me that the extension was created. And what it does is register like 700 functions. Let me refresh this. Okay, so all these functions are type of indexes and functions to tell something like, here is a square, give me all the points within this square, outside this square, in the borders of this line or whatever. So you can go crazy with this. It's like super advanced geolocation functionality. But I just needed one in general. So the one that I needed, I guess I will be publishing more functions as I see them, like as I see the need for them. But the only one that I created is let's see, is std within function. So basically, this is a XPO function operator, and it doesn't have the evaluate part is the one that you execute on the client side. For example, and if you show a grid of data, in one part is the part that you go and get from the server, and the other part is what you do when you filter the columns and sort and so on. So this one is the one that is like in the client side. So this you have to do it with math, and I have not done it. I have the math somewhere there in a repo, but I guess one day I will do it. So you can basically execute geolocation queries inside of the grid. But in this case, it's not necessary. I wanted to get it from the database itself. So basically, I register the operator, and it's just we check if the provider is the one that we're using, and then you write the function as you will write it in Postgres, and you just replace the values. The first one is the column, and the second one is the point that you want to create, and the third one is the distance that you want to look. So you want to get any point that is within this distance of this other point that you're creating here. So kind of really, really simple. So let me run this. So let's run the Win application. And of course, when you use a custom XPO provider, you need to register. So in here, you just go to the first line of the program, and then you do this. And in this register, if I go to the definition, I also register the std within function. Also, another functionality that I'm adding to this provider is to query JSON objects or JSON columns. So this JSON arrow is one of those functions. I'm not going to show that because it's broken at the moment. But I think that if you use something like the geolocation functionalities of Postgres and also the JSON functionalities of Postgres, you have an easy replacement for MongoDB or for something like Cosmos. So it's I think that you can have all the functionality of Cosmos DB or Mongo without the tax price, because Cosmos is kind of expensive. Okay, so I register the provider, then I use that in my connection string. So let's run the application, and let me show you the updater first. So let's see, updater here. So here I do a simple query, and if I don't have any domain object, I will create some points, and this is the idea. I create a domain object, and then this I use Bogus. Let me open that here. We have shown that before, but I found it really, really useful for you for generate test data, because in here they have you know, it's a random data generator. You can use it to generate customers, orders, and stuff like that. But if you pay and the price is only $7 actually, or $8, something like that, you can generate locations and addresses, and you can tell it, okay, this is the point, the central point, and I want to generate locations within 100 meters of this point. So that is complicated to calculate. So just a shout out to Bogus, is like an amazing tool to generate fake data, and especially I would not call it fake data, I would call it test data, because the data is valid, it is congruent. So I use this tool to generate these points. So all these points are within, I think, like 2 kilometers of St. Petersburg. So let me run this. This will look, and I will get this point here, just to show you. So let me show you domain object one. Domain object one is basically a normal domain object, with the idea that we do have a column or a property that is a string that is called current point, and we tell it that the DB type is geometry, and we have this value converter, which is a Gsi converter. So if we go to definition, is if we get a value from the storage, we do to string and we return the string representation. And when we do it to storage, we expect these syntaxes, and then we take the text out, and then we parse it, and then we create a point, and that's what we store, the point. And if you can see, this comes from the net topology suite geometry. So let's come here. Okay, so here's the domain object one. It looks like a normal grid. So if I open this looks basically like a text. I can copy this one and create another point, and I will set a breakpoint here and do XAF demo here and paste this. So when I save it, let's see, demo effect. So I got the value. Let's see, values. Oh, I'm missing one parenthesis. So, or I have one parenthesis extra. Let's see. I think it's this. Let me create that again, because you know demo effect, demo. Okay, so this time there was a space there. It created a valid point, and this is going to be saved in the database. And basically, it's a geolocation point. So that is the first part of the demo. Basically, we have a custom XPO provider that handles JSON columns and handles geolocation. So just to show how it works, here I have a controller, and in the controller I have just a simple action, and then I basically parse the function that I register. So the name of the function is the same as the name of the function inside of Postgres to do like one-to-one naming. So I'm telling it to evaluate the current point. I'm passing the point where I want to put like the center, and then I want any point that is 600 meters away from this point. So let's run it in here. Here. So basically, I did get objects, then I pass the criteria, then I cast it to. I have this interface that I will use later in the API. But then I will put a breakpoint here and clear this. So all these points are the points. There are 1,000 points in the database, and these ones are the ones that are 600 meters within this other location. So basically here, we can work as this with normal persistent objects, and the location property is basically string. So it's kind of really easy to use. So, okay, we have specialized data, and we have it, we are using that in XAF. So now let's go to, to the API. So I'm not going to show how the API was created because we just showed that, Javier. So the next step is I ask developer express, okay, I have this custom XPO provider with this really special functionality, which is the JSON functionality and the geolocation functionality. How do I use that within the API? And as always, I think that when I write a ticket, they must say like, again, he's asking like some strange things that will take like 1 week to research. But they're always super nice with us, and they always answer on time, and they give like enough information and everything. So after exchanging a few tickets with Dennis and with, hold on, I need to see who else was involved. I don't want to, I want to give the credits for the people who deserve it. So for this, Dennis helped me, and I think it was only Dennis then. Just 1 sec. Dennis and Anatol. So both of them helped me in this ticket. So I asked them, okay, what should I do if I want to create, I use this provider in the API? And then we came to the conclusion that was not possible to do because the API used the OData syntaxes to query data. So there is no way to include that that function custom criteria that I created in the OData syntax, or it will require just really a lot of coding that might not be necessary. So we discussed like few other ways, and I will show the documentation here. There are a few things that we can do, and first is, let's see.
Okay, if you're gonna create a custom endpoint, let me do the 3 minutes demo just to show.
Okay, yes, yeah. So I will stop there. So for my next demo, I'm going to use the OData provider in a custom endpoint, but you can continue with that, and then I will go back to the one that I have.
Yeah, I will just show how to create a custom endpoint that's following the documentation, and how to use the object space, how to use the security system in that 2 seconds. So Jean-Paul, let me share my screen, has questions about how to expand more than 2 levels of nested collection. If anyone
I have
here...
a question. I have an answer for him. Do you have an answer also, Javier?
No, go for it. I was actually going to ask all the group here if they have any experience.
We tried to do that before back in the OData V3 version, and we use the simple OData client, which is created by a guy named Object, which I think is a nice GitHub handle. So it's possible. We were able to do it with Entity Framework, but not with XPO. I think that still with XPO is also possible, but what I will suggest, and maybe Javier will show something like that at the moment, is because I faced that just today, and if your scenario is getting just too complex and you need to do something like multiple level queries and a really complex query, just create a custom endpoint and do all the magic in .NET C#, and then just return the results, because it will be way easier than trying to do the nested collection. Because with Javier, we had a nested collection with an object property that we need to filter, and we went crazy trying to do that. And we spent weeks, I think, or days at least. So I will use a custom endpoint for that.
Yeah,
for that case.
And I don't remember now, but I think that there was a nugget, or there was a version of data that it was I don't know if we got it. I don't remember now. I have been too long, but we had a lot of issues with daytimes filtering. I don't remember what was exactly, but it was awful.
And remember also, Javier, at that time.
To the point that we did, how do we call those Linux numbers? Epoch. We did an epoch to filter by those because it was crazy in the moment. Okay.
And also, Javier, just to bring a little bit of the suffering that we had before, is that you remember that sometimes we were using Xamarin and OData with the BT provider from XPO, and in one version of the simple OData client worked one way, and one version before worked another way, and the next version worked in a different way. So if you were in one version and me in another version, we have totally different results in the queries. So that's things that you have to suffer, but I think it's not like that anymore. But anyway, I just wanted to remember like that piece of suffering.
Yeah, the other nugget that we have had that issue with the authentication library from Microsoft for all the Azure B2C. One version worked for iOS, the other one didn't work. One version worked for Android, the other one didn't work. The one that works for one didn't work for the other one. So
yes, you think that technology is so easy, right?
Yeah,
but no.
Okay, so let's just create a custom endpoint. This is really simple. This is normal web API behavior, but let's show it either way. So basically, we're going to create a controller, inheriting from controller base, and we're going to basically create manually all our endpoints, get, post, put, delete, and so on. And we're going to put the authorize if we want to take the authorization method that we are using with XAF. And that's it. It's as simple as taking this controller, and of course, anything here you can modify, you can return anything you need to, but basically we're going to take this code and we're going to paste it in our project that we're using. Right here, we of course can create a folder for controller for organizing things. Right now, let's do it as simple as possible. This is Authentication Control that we were using. So let's basically, where is the end of the class? Right here. Let's paste it here. And we're going to have the authorized attribute. We need the namespace. And as always, let's move this to a separate class. Okay, it's not in the right folder with GWT, and I don't know why we are the documentation. They paste the custom endpoint one. This is the same example of when we have using test with solution one, and then the ERP is called solution one because we left the name of the template. But basically now, if we go back here, we have the authorized to make sure that
that's the name of my endpoint. Yeah. Also for
that's good. So we have custom endpoint one, and right here we have like we're returning to a string, and we can pass an ID. It's still not taking the ID. If you see here, it's just returning value. It's just to show that we can do all these type of things. So now with only that, if we run it, you should see that in Swagger, there should be an extra couple of endpoints with that controller. It went to the other monitor. Let's go it down. And until this point, it's everything .NET. The only thing that we're using different is just the authorized with the security system on SAF. That is also .NET, but what I mean is not related to SAF. If you see those custom endpoints are just a simple get, put, delete, and so on, but we had it right here. Custom endpoint, and we have the get with the ID, post, put, delete, and everything that we need. If we try to use it now, unless you will see, because we have the authorized attribute, that it should fail. Let's see.
It should give you a 401. There it is.
Yeah, right here. I was looking for the unauthorized, so 401. So now, let's do the same thing as we did before. Authenticate, try it out. And we can do all of this in Postman as well. So whoever likes to use Postman, as myself, you can definitely go for it. Let's wait for a token. And let's go up and authorize. Here we go. Now let's go back to our custom endpoint. And now we should be able to get value 1 and value 2 in our response. So that's simple. We have a custom endpoint, and right there we can do anything we need. So if we have to do some crazy stuff and Hoche probably will show an advanced scenario of this. You have to call a different API. Sometimes you have an API that it costs a lot of money. So basically you create a middle layer that you just call that one once and you store the data, and then you are only calling this one all the time, things like that. So you are able to do any type of processing in that endpoint right there. Now, let's go to the XAF part now, and let's come back to the documentation. So now we have here, how do we access object space, security system, action helper, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to be adding a lot of more service and things. So before, I think that we were kind of tight coupled to the XAF application. Right now, we don't need that. We just need to put by dependency injection past the IOR space factory, and with that one, we can create an object space of any type of object that we need and so on. So let's basically do that. And let's just copy the part that we need. Right here, let's stop the service. And we have to create a constructor. And we want to pass the space factory and the namespace. And I think that I'm missing something probably. Let me go back to it.
To be honest, Javier, depending on the version that you're having, that might be different.
Yeah, I think that probably because before.
This is for the newest one. And I'm one behind, or at least my example is in one version behind.
Okay,
so I don't
this
have
one.
that factory.
And you don't have that one either?
No, so basically what I did is I inject the object space. You just put the object space instead of the factory.
That's fine.
It's almost the same.
You're right. What we'll do is I'm gonna, while you show the demo, I'm gonna download the latest one, and I will team viewer to the machine that I have the latest one, and then I will show that.
Yeah, because you need to create the solution with that one, because otherwise you wouldn't have that. I was crazy today trying to do that and see like why it was not working. So just 1 second, let's go back to my example. So, okay, going back to my complex examples. Basically, okay, so going back to the problem that I had is I needed to use the geolocation functionality in the API, and there is no way to basically go from the old data syntaxes for filtering data to the XPO criteria language. So I was in a problem. So Dennis suggested to do custom operations or custom endpoints. And then I will show you some articles that I used to fix this and some of the problems that might come if you use Net 3, I mean Net Core 3, Net 5, or Net 6, because it's a little bit different in each of them. So it's something that you don't want to be updating or moving from version. Or if you want to do it in the latest version, because I told you, like, I found like 5 different ways to solve this problem, depending on the version of the framework. Okay, so I'm going to set the API project as a startup. In here, I did exactly the same. I went to the program class, and then I register my Postgres provider so I can use that special functionality. So this is what happened. So after I registered the type, as Javier shown, the domain object 1, I'm able to do the CRUD operations and to filter and so on and so forth, but I'm not able to filter based on geolocation. So I have a problem there. So which options do I have? Well, I can create custom endpoint as Javier did. And I was having the problem that we were talking about the object space factory not being available in the version that I used for this example. So basically what I did is, okay, I know that there is a service that returns object spaces, so I put the object space in the constructor. And then I did basically custom get method. So in here, this one is actually, I can set this to null and we'll return everything. So this one, there is a tricky part in here. And the tricky part is that the object that you return here should be serializable. So it means that it should be somehow like a Poco object or maybe an interface. Interface, depending on the version of the framework that you're using, might have some problems. So you need to be careful with this in general. So what I did is, okay, if I return the main object, this will give me serialization problem. So let's see, and I will comment out this. I want to show the problem before I show the solution. So this was my first attempt, this get method, and let's run it. Okay, so let's log in first to get a new token. And execute. And here we have the token, so we copy this. And I will paste it somewhere so I can use it later. And let's log in here, authorize. And I have login. So here I have the custom endpoint. So let's execute this, try it out. I will execute it. And I will, if you return an XPO type or a domain object, you will get this type of problem, this huge exception. So the thing that we can use for that is in here. Actually, put that information in this solution, and I'm going to share it later, I think. Okay, there is this ticket. No, this I'm getting ahead of myself. I think it's this one. Okay, yes, it's this one. So in here, another customer asked, how can they, when they use a custom endpoint, how can they return an XPO object? Because the API makes it look super easy that you just return the object and that's it. And it's not exactly like that. You need to actually return an iQueryable object. That's one of the first problems. And then here they go back and forth, and in the end, you need to implement an interface of a class that will return the information about the model that you want to return in the custom endpoint. You need to register that service as transient, and then you need to do like more of those interfaces that describe the type, and that they describe the serialization and register more services. So it's a huge, difficult solution. It requires a lot of little details. It will be really specific to your .NET version. So I did this and I make it work, and I didn't like it because it was just too long. Of course, thanks to the person who asked for this, and without that, we wouldn't have all the information that then is posted in here. So then I say, okay, how can we make this easier? Just something I have to do for a hack. Okay, so how can we avoid that? So in here we can return either the interface or we can return the Poco object. So I will leave it as it was, which was the interface. So let's go to domain object 1. And in here, domain object 1 implements the interface iDomain object. So if I go here, this only needs two properties. One is the current point, which is the geolocation point, and the second is the name. So I also created a Poco object. So a Poco object is an object that doesn't have any special base, that implements the same interface. And if you pass the interface, you can create an instance of this. So I have this Poco object. And then I created an extension. The extension will be, is used to any enumerable collection of iDomain object 1. I can add this method to Poco, and this returns me a list of Poco objects. So this is adding a little bit of an extra overhead. I have not calculated how much, but it's not that much. I mean, of course, we have to have numbers in these cases. If you're returning millions of records, maybe this will take time. But this doesn't add for returning 1,000 records. Almost, actually you don't even see it, right, or feel it, that there is a little bit of delay, or if there is any, because this goes super fast. So of course you're adding some steps, right? So in here what I did is, okay, I will return the interface step, and in here what I will do is I will get a collection of domain object 1, then I will cast it to the interface. And then this, with my extension, I will do to Poco, and this will return me, I will make this explicit, a list of domain object 1 Poco, so something that is easy to serialize. So let's run this again. And now, instead of getting that huge error, and with not making too much changes on the code, we authorize, we close. So this one was the one that we had the problem. So I would execute it. And here I have, basically, I think that there are 1,000 records in here. So these are basically the domain objects, all the domain objects with the name and location. So these basically, those 2 or 3 little classes that I did there will basically fix all the problems that I showed you in the ticket. That was like 10 steps or maybe even more. And you really need to pay attention to them because you can break your solution doing them. So I think that was a safer way to do it. So that's why if you're going to use a custom endpoint, you better create an extension to cast the returned objects that you have into a list of Poco objects, and then you just return that. The serializer swallowed them like really easy. Okay, so this fixed all that huge problem. So still, we have a custom endpoint, but we have not shown how to query, to do a geolocation query. Now, this other get method that I have, which is get within the instance, is basically the same as this one. The only difference is that I create the criteria operator, because this you cannot do with all data in general. That's why you have to have a custom endpoint. I pass the latitude, longitude, and distance. Then with that, I create the criteria operator. I pass it to the object space. Then I cast it to domain object interface, domain object 1 interface, and then to Poco. So it's the same solution as we did here. And then I return the objects. So let's go back to that one in here. So I'm already authenticated. Here I return all the 1,000 points. that I had. So let's cancel this. Okay, I thought that I would clear this, but anyway. So I will use get within distance. So I will try it out. And in the code I have, this is the information. I generated those points around this point. So if I pass these values, I should get some results. So latitude. Longitude and distance is 600. So I should get like, I think like 20 records. And see, here I have them. I don't see the scroll bar is like really small. It's not the 1,000 ones that I had before. I think I got 13 results within that distance. And if I make the distance smaller, like 200 meters, I will get less points. So I got only 4. And if I did it, do it 100, only 2, and I would make it like 1,000. Then I guess I would, or 800 meters. So then I will get a lot of them. Well, not that many, just 20. So now we can use custom XPO providers and custom criteria operators in the API. We don't use the OData syntaxes, but we just create a custom operation basically, and then we get we can query it like something as specific as this. Javier, I think there are a few questions on the chat. I see a number there. Maybe.
Yeah, no. The question on the chat is directly for you about out of mapper. So open the link and let's see if you want to, or just wait for you finish the demo and then you take a look. And
I mean, yes. There is. I don't remember the name of this. There is a utility which is automapper or something like that. There are a few of them. Yes, you can use that to do the casting, but basically they will do the same as I did by hand. And I wanted to show how it is. But yes, it's something like that. Or we can do it with reflection, get this property name and set it to this other property name. So you can do that, but there is always that little overhead of that conversion. But in the end, I haven't measured the time, but it's almost non-existent. So it's not that much of a problem. So, okay. Going back, do you want to go back, Javier? Because I have another demo that is almost the same, but it's doing it in a different way. Or I can continue and then we go to your
go for it, Jose. I'm updating to show that. So give me
okay, okay. So now we have this custom endpoint. And I kind of like it. It was not that bad. As Jean-Paul says, we can use something like an automapper, or I did that Poco extension to wrap the object inside of another object, which is serializable. But I don't like to do these Poco objects because you end up having to make a Poco object for each instance of your domain objects. So then one of these days, these last 2 weeks, I was working with a customer, with Joe, and he told me at one moment, we need to serialize something. It's like, he told me, let's use a tuple. And the first syntax that I tried was horrible. But then we find a really compact syntax, which is like just a parenthesis, basically. And then I thought, okay, let's try to do that. Let's try to do an anonymous type. Well, it didn't work. It didn't work. But then I got some other ideas. Okay, maybe tuple, you cannot serialize tuples, but maybe we can do something else. Okay, so I will show another way to use other type of controllers in the API. So this is a custom endpoint, and basically we have the authorized, so we share the same authorization scheme. This is an API controller, and the route is calculated like this. But this inherits from controller base. So this other one basically do the same. which is a custom OData controller. Here I have some information about it. Like I found some people discussing it and some information about XPO and how you can serialize the information. Of course, all of that is involve a lot of steps that I didn't want to do. So you know, we had that along in the past. Javier, remember that we work so much and trying not to work, and trying to get the shortest answer possible. So in here, this was a little bit of my afternoon. So in this case, everything like in the decorations is exactly the same, authorized and route. This is not an API controller, that's the only difference. The base class of this is an OData controller. The constructor is exactly the same. I pass an object space. And then in here, I have an action result. An action result is a method that is not associated with that type of result. It will just get anything. You have to return OK, and then pass a value of an object, and it will serialize that object. So it's not related that it is expecting here like an enumerable of strings or something. It's just expecting an action result. So in this case, I have the same idea. So this is exactly the same implementation as we did in the other controller. So the only difference in here is that in the other one, the return of the method was enumerable of something, of iDomain objects or iDomain object Poco or whatever. So in here, I'm just returning an action result. And I'm doing the same trick, casting, and then I return a Poco object. But the interesting one is the second one. So in this case, I don't have to use the extension. I don't have to use, actually here, this text, I don't actually need it. I think it can be like that or not. It was running, so let's leave it as it was. Okay, so basically it's the same idea. Is I should return an action result. I get the same parameters. But in here, I don't have to create a Poco class and that extension to copy one object to the other. I just use XPO. It has something called the XPO to link queue provider. So this is actually super efficient because this will, imagine that domain object one has 2,000 columns, but we just need 2. So when you do get objects like you do in here, you get that 1,000 columns. And you need to serialize that information and show it in the JSON, so it will make your JSON heavier. But in this case, I'm using the power of the link provider for XPO. So this will return an iQueryable collection of XPO. So then you can do, since it's an iQueryable, you can do select new and just get the properties that you want. So it means that if this object has 1,000 or 2,000 columns, I will just return 2 columns and it will create an anonymous type. So what are the advantages of that? First, your query becomes really, really small and efficient. That's the first advantage. And the second advantage is that you don't have to create that intermediate Poco class to return this information. So this is the way more efficient than the other 3 ways that I showed before. And I think it can be even more efficient that the endpoints that comes by default with the web API, because those endpoints will return all the information. Of course, you can do nested queries, as Jean-Paul was saying, like you can tell like invoice header, then invoice detail, and then product, for example. But if you don't need that level of queries, you can flat out the result and just return it in something like this. Super efficient query and not intermediate objects. So
and you can do filter, Jose, from OData.
Yes, you can do filter also because this is OData endpoint. So where is the? I don't see it, so I don't know again. So I think this is the most efficient one because the query is efficient you can do the filter of data, and you don't have to create intermediate objects. So this is, for me, from all that I was testing today, was the top in performance level, and also in coding time, because it's the shortest one to code. So let's authorize this, close, and this is the custom OData endpoint. So this is the beautiful one, the anonymous one. So again, I will use the same values. This one, try out. This other one here, and 600, and execute, and I will get the same, like 20 results, 13. So if I do, I think if I did like 100, I got just 2. Yeah, just 2. And see, the query will be actually those 2 properties. Actually, it's not even getting the OID of that in the query. If you see the XPO log, remember that we did in the video that we talk about XPO performance. This is one of the top ones when you do select from a linked query. So, well, this is another trick to do if you're going to use the API. You don't have to use the endpoint. Of course, it's nice because you already have them all there when you create your domain objects. But if you have something really, really complex to do, maybe you can just pass some parameters and return an anonymous object. So a select new, a link query in general, and you can do a no data type of controller. So the authorization and everything is exactly the same. And you can really, without too much code, do something with really good performance, and of course a few lines of code only, which is who doesn't want that. So let's see. So well, that's everything for this demo. I hope that is interesting for you guys. Let's see, Javier, I think we're going back to you.
All right.
How is the update going?
Just finished it, so
Just going.
yeah.
Give us time, if not, I think that they have the last version, so I can take a look.
Anyway, the idea is simple. We have access to the object space. We have access to the security system. We have access to the caption helper and everything in between. And Jorge, this is what we were discussing before. Right here, we can do, like, if we're calling this from a summary, from a console, from everything, you can actually start using OData as you have used it before. First name equal Mari, select last name and email. So you can do everything that OData, and it's a good thing to go and read the documentation about all those operator, filter, expand, select, order by, top, skid. So there is a lot of things there. Same thing, example of how to use it, and convention here. So there is a lot of documentation regarding this. And I just finished, but I think that basically that will be it for today. I don't want to, again, this just is finishing in the last % of the update, but we can see basically the object space factory, how create the object space. We can see the security system, how use the security, and we can see the caption helper and so on, and more things are going to be coming on. We are going to create a quick YouTube video for this. But besides that, I think that anyone who has questions or want to share anything, happy to hear. If not, we'll see you next month. And there is a lot of great topics coming on, so we're getting back on track.
Hans, you're mute.
No, you're just saying hi. Okay, let's do the picture, okay.
Yeah, of course. This is the most important part. Let me clean the camera. So, guys, the best smile for the internet. 1, 2, 3, and again 1, 2, 3. Okay, thanks everyone. It was a really good show.
Okay, see you guys next month.
Bye bye.